You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-RADIO-US, 844-723-4687. It will be a few more days before the actual 50th anniversary of the first landing of Americans on the moon will be celebrated. Commander Neil Armstrong, lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin, landed the Apollo lunar module Eagle on the moon July 20th, 1969 at 20 hours, 17 minutes Universal Time. Armstrong became the first person to step on the lunar surface 6 hours, 39 minutes later on July 21st, at 2:56:15 Universal Time. Aldrin joined him on the surface 19 minutes later. They spent 2.25 hours outside the spacecraft. They collected 47.5 pounds of lunar material. Michael Collins flew the command module Columbia alone in lunar orbit while they were on the moon's surface. Strangely enough, Michael Collins was the only person, the only American, and perhaps one of the only people on the planet Earth that did not get to see the television coverage of his colleagues bouncing around on the moon. Armstrong and Aldrin spent 21 hours, 31 minutes on the lunar surface at a site they named Tranquility Base and never said a word about it until they were sitting there. The mighty Saturn V lifted them off Pad 39, soared into the sky very, very slowly. I never got to see a Saturn V leave, but I was told that it was one of the most awe-inspiring things anybody ever saw. It was easily the most powerful machine ever created by man at that point. They say there are those that are better. But what's interesting, at least interesting to me, is how that machine was so good that there are various companies trying to recreate those mighty F1 engines and try to get that kind of power again. They've done it. Falcon Heavy from SpaceX, Elon Musk's organization, has come very close. The entire endeavor called Apollo cost $100 billion. $100 billion to take men from the planet Earth in peace to the lunar surface. $100 billion. The Green New Deal would cost somewhere in the vicinity of $107 trillion. Medicare for all would cost $32 trillion. $32 trillion. Currently, the NASA budget is somewhere in the vicinity of $20 billion a year. It is not enough. The agency, NASA, has been celebrating Apollo 11 for months. It has published a steady stream of archival photos and footage. The astronauts have been recalled to Houston and other places to continue their evangelical work to try to get other people on that sphere that circles us so beautifully every day. Then was last occupied by people, human beings, nearly 50 years ago. The agency has been spending some of their hard-earned money refurbishing and recreating Mission Control as it was the day that Armstrong and Aldrin set foot on the moon. It now looks exactly the way it did in 1969, down to the coffee cups, the clipboards, the packs of cigarettes. NASA headquarters even asked every communications officer at the agency to be mindful of posting evergreen materials during the next few weeks that could get better attention once we're past the spotlight event of the first landing on the moon. You see, when Americans set foot upon the moon, we had won an amazing fight. We had won an amazing endeavor. In the late 50s and early 60s, the United States was engaged in a Cold War. This was after the Second World War. The Soviet Union fancied itself more than an equal to the United States of America. A geopolitical rivalry ensued. The Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1. It was an artificial satellite, the first one ever. Circled the Earth, beeping in its rather peaceful way. But it was amazing to the people that listened to it beep as it could be seen traversing from one side of the sky to the other. And people suddenly realized if they can put a satellite up there, they can put a bomb up there. And that was the beginning of the Cold War. The surprise successes fired fears and imaginations around the world. It demonstrated the Soviet Union had the capability to deliver nuclear weapons over intercontinental distances and challenged American claims of military, economic, and technological superiority. That precipitated the Sputnik crisis, triggered the space race. President Eisenhower responded to the Sputnik challenge by creating the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. They initiated Project Mercury, which aimed to launch a man into Earth orbit. April 12, 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first person in space and the first person to orbit the Earth. Nearly a month later, Alan Shepard became the first American in space, completing a 15-minute suborbital journey, where instead of going into actual orbit around the Earth, instead you go up into space and you come down. 15-minute flight. He was indeed the first free man in space, but that was lost in the propagandist argument. After Apollo 11 made it, everybody said, good, we won, and walked away. Apollo 12 followed and created the classic, okay, who was a member of the Apollo 12 crew? Apollo 13 would rekindle the interest in the space program because of the incredible genius of flight control, the way it was practiced by brilliant people in NASA. Had it not been for mission control in Houston, Texas, we would have lost those astronauts. There is no doubt about it. The structure that created the opportunity to be able to bring that many experts together that quickly, that beautifully, that well, saved those men's lives. Apollo 14 followed. Alan Shepard, America's first man in space, became the fifth American to walk on the surface of the moon. Apollo 15, 16, and 17 followed. 17 took off at night. It was one of the most amazing things ever seen by human beings. Saturn rocket lifting off, lighting the entire sky in an artificial sun, lifting millions of pounds into the air, and all the way to the moon. After that was over, NASA licked its wounds, having seen 3 more Apollo missions shelved. We got a few trophies out of it, a few Saturn V's, mummified in the absolute political irresponsibility that forced them to lay on the ground instead of flying in the air, in the ether and space. The Trump administration wants Americans back on the moon, a place they haven't been since 1972. In 5 years during President Donald Trump's second term, if he's reelected, right now the agency doesn't have the money to make it happen. In May, the White House asked Congress for an extra $1.6 billion in NASA's next budget to fund the effort, which would cost $20 billion to $30 billion, and unlike the Apollo program, would rely heavily on technology bought from private companies. Well, that's kind of a misnomer. Those private companies, defense contractors, provided the original hardware to begin with. So that's kind of a mistake in the copy. Astronauts would land near the south pole of the moon this time, where they could theoretically make use of frozen water that apparently is on the surface. The crew would include for the first time a woman. The spacecraft would look very much like Apollo, except much bigger. Could carry 7 crew members. A mission to Mars would come later. The objective is to first have astronauts land on the moon, essentially colonizing it before they decide to move astronauts to Mars. It makes perfect sense. But since when did perfect sense make it through the political process? It certainly didn't happen. It didn't happen with the space shuttle. It was a valiant effort. NASA tried the very best they could do to come up with something that would allow them to fly into space, even if it was just low Earth orbit. They did everything they could, but that was not the original design of the space shuttle, not the one that flew. Those bombs strapped to the side of that spacecraft were not supposed to be there. It should have been two liquid-fueled rockets that were powered by space shuttle main engines. Because what people don't realize is that if you've got engines mounted on the space shuttle has to carry that weight up into space. Just because it's a machine that provides motive force to lift it into space doesn't mean that the actual spacecraft doesn't have to carry the weight to get up there. If you take those engines and you put them into reusable boosters on each side, then suddenly you have a spacecraft that can go much farther, much higher, much faster, carry much more, do many more things. But no, they decided to go with these solid rocket boosters that would end up killing 7 astronauts. And then changes made in the design to save weight quite literally would contribute to the loss of another 7 astronauts, as a piece of insulation from the external fuel tank would come flying off the gigantic structure that it was sprayed onto and break the leading edge of one of the wings, the left one, in fact, of Space Shuttle Columbia. The pieces of that spacecraft fell among the people you can see outside the windows on Facebook, if you happen to be here. It happened right in Texas. The Texas State Guard found those pieces. Congress has got to figure out what they want to do, but right now they're sending almost $2 billion to Planned Parenthood. NASA officials have spent the past several months talking up the new mission named Artemis after Apollo's sister in Greek mythology. As with Apollo anniversary coverage, everyone seemed to be on message until the person who ordered the mission strayed. For all the money we're spending, NASA should not be talking about going to the moon. We did that 50 years ago, said President Trump. They should be focused on the much bigger things we need to be doing, including Mars. Well, yeah, I get that, sir, but once again, let's go to the moon. We know how. We've been there before. Let's perfect the technologies necessary to go to Mars and stay. And we can do that by going to the moon and staying. He'll come to the right conclusion. He's a smart man. But the next time a politician comes to you and says that money needs to be spent on Earth, look at them incredulously and say, you're $25 trillion in debt. Don't you think we spend enough money on Earth? Let's spend some money out in space on the technology it takes to get there. Let's stop sending robots to do a man's work. And oh yes, a woman's work as well. Let's go back to the moon and then to Mars, not the other way around.
Welcome to Tax Talk with Hollywood legend Bob Eubanks.
You know, as part of Hollywood for a long time, I've seen my fair share of celebrities get in trouble with the IRS. Well, there's one name I trust, the Tax Defense Group. They're the most trusted name in tax. So if you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS, you really need to call my friends at the Tax Defense Group. Ignoring the IRS is not the solution. They can garnish your paycheck, levy your bank accounts, seize your home or business. But the Tax Defense Group could put a stop to all of that and tailor a program that would reduce your tax debt to pennies on the dollar. You gotta love that. So don't just take my word for it. Call them. Find out for yourself. They offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee. And they're open 24 hours a day because they know that tax debt doesn't sleep either.
Call now for your free and confidential tax analysis from the most trusted name in tax. Call 800-832-1594. 800-832-1594.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS and you cannot afford to make payments to the IRS, you may qualify for the CNC tax program. This is a new program, and if you qualify, you won't make any payments to the IRS while in this program. Once you're accepted into this program, the IRS is forced to stop all harassing collection activities. No threatening phone calls, no wage garnishments, no bank levies, and no more monthly payments to the IRS. Get ready to write this number down. It's the most important number you'll ever need to end your IRS tax nightmare. Call Paramount Tax Relief at 800-547-4804 for a free confidential consultation to find out if you qualify for the CNC tax program. Once you are accepted into the CNC tax program, you won't make any payments to the IRS while in this program. Call Paramount Tax Relief now at 800-547-4804. That's 800-547-4804. Again, 800-547-4804.
Hey travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip, or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
800-871-3291. 800-871-3291. Again, that's 800-871-3291.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. $100 billion funded Apollo. Jeff Bezos has $125 billion in his personal wealth. He could indeed fund Apollo out of his own pocket and have $25 billion left. Bezos is working on trying to get into space. In fact, he's spending billions on space. He's spending much of his Amazon fortune in the development of space technologies through Blue Origin. Why? Because I think it's important, said Bezos. I think it's important for this planet. I think it's important for the dynamism of future generations. It's something I care deeply about. It's something I've been thinking about all my life. Bezos says, you don't choose your passions. Your passions choose you. And that is completely true. He became fascinated with space as a child, watching astronauts Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong land on the moon. He also says that developing space technologies is critical for human beings to have a long future. We humans have to go to space if we're going to continue having a thriving civilization. We have become as big a population as a species, and this planet is relatively small. We see it in things like climate change, pollution, and heavy industry. We're in the process of destroying the planet. And we have robotic probes to every planet in the solar system. This is a good one, so we have to preserve the planet. I'm going to take issue with some of that. The planet is far cleaner than it has ever been, based on the technology that has come and gone in all of the decades that we have been on this planet. In the 60s and 70s, the air was dramatically dirty. Based on the burning of fossil fuels, we fixed that problem with technology, just like we'll fix whatever other problem may show up. I keep putting the facts out there. Everybody keeps saying that man-made climate change is going to destroy the planet. I say poppycock. We don't even know if man has any effect on this planet yet. I doubt it does. Oh, it's got the tools to do it. Nuclear weapons are big enough. Certainly hydrogen bombs, thermonuclear weapons are big enough to alter the actual planet, but we haven't fired one of those since 1962, I believe. The simple case of the matter is this planet is doing fine. There's plenty of room that has yet to be used by anyone for any reason. People think that most of the United States and most of the land on Earth is settled. Most of the land on Earth is empty. A vast majority of it, in fact. We are not destroying this planet. We are living here. Beautifully, in fact. Everything we do will lead to a better Earth. At some point, humans will create a better planet than Mother Nature did, or even created by God. We'll use this planet, and it will be better than it was when we got it. We send things up into space, but they're all made on Earth. Eventually, it will be much cheaper and much simpler to make really complicated things, microprocessors, in space, and send those highly complex manufactured objects back down to Earth so that we don't have the big factories and pollution-generating industries that make those things now on Earth. No, we're not polluting like we used to. Not in any way, shape, or form. It's like these people are fighting a battle that was solved 30 years ago. Multiple generations, hundreds of years. But sooner or later, Americans, Russians, French, Germans, Chinese, Japanese, everybody on this planet will say hasta la vista to their family members as they head to a new life on a new planet in this solar system. I wonder if anybody will be named Wells in that trip. The executive producer of the Wells Report is Phil Brown. Our associate producer is Ian Lucas. The Wells Report publicist from Net Media Consultants is the great Jube Dankworth. If you need a publicist, you need to call Jube, J-U-B-E, Dankworth, and you'll be very pleased you did. Coming up next, Wayne Allen Roots. This is the USA Radio Network.
Hi, this is Wayne Allen Root. I have a voice problem. My voice easily gets hoarse. That's a big problem when you're a talk show host. I talk thousands of hours a year on radio and TV. I have to protect my voice. Well, those problems are a thing of the past. My throat is now a workhorse because of My Doctor Suggests all-natural silver lozenges. I pop these lozenges all day long and all show long. Silver has been used historically to destroy bacteria, viruses, and even yeast. Imagine sucking on a lozenge and letting the silver slowly and consistently destroy the cause of mouth, throat, and respiratory problems. Those lozenges work. I'm living proof. They're a miracle for me. Now a more advanced silver formula is available in a liquid gel or lozenge form, and you can get all three in one package and 20% off because War sent you. My Doctor Suggests the name of the company, but Wayne Root doesn't suggest. I urge you to try these remarkable all-natural lozenges today. Call 866-660-9868. That's 866-660-9868, or go to MyDoctorSuggest.com/Root. Use promo code USA Radio to save 20% off. That's MyDoctorSuggest.com/Root.